That burns, man, right there. I mean, now, that one's not bad. This one's not bad. But these two together. Yeah, I don't know about anybody else, but I still do stuff like that because it's really effective. I mean, it's always effective. I was never someone to just practice something like that until I had it mastered. I'm just not that kind of a player. But I mean, like, I think I could have gotten a lot more benefit were I to spend more time total playing something like that. Really, it's kind of just, like, is it a warm-up exercise, or is it more of something that you could use to kind of find a way to be creative with less notes? I mean, I guess it's all of these things together. But yeah, that's kind of something that I always think is really, really worth looking into, especially if you're including your pinky finger, because you never stop running into people who complain because basically they never learn to use their pinky and they wish that they did. I have never heard anybody who learned to use their pinky who said it was a waste of time and I shouldn't have done that. I wish I didn't learn how to use my pinky. I've never heard that. So it's really just statistics. But I was doing this earlier, and I was just staying on like around the 5th fret for now. So the good thing about something like this is that you don't have to worry about chords or scales or even individual notes or anything like that. This is all about like assigning one finger per fret and doing just small patterns out of that. So ones I was doing at the beginning are just kind of like the best way. So I was doing I was starting on 5, and basically the idea here is if you're playing the 5th fret for this, then your first finger is going to be doing that. Then middle finger for 6, ring for 7, pinky for 8, and just kind of just like a real basic warm-up exercise is something that you see all the time. This. That's just kind of like a good example of basically what this kind of stuff is about, but it's not going to be just that one. Going back to the one that I was doing at the very beginning, I started doing this. I was just doing 5th fret, 6th fret. So this is just like this. I'm alternate picking these. And you can even make a picking exercise out of something like this too by finding different permutations of how you pick it. Like that was just alternate picking, like I said. But you could try doing it with like that was alternate picking starting with a downstroke, okay, and then going back the other way. Let me see, where did we end up? Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Yeah, okay, so down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. You you could do it like this. So you could go down, up, all the way. This time you can start with an upstroke. How many notes per strings you're doing, and like if you're starting on a downstroke, say you're doing like 4 notes, down, up, like an even number of notes, you would start with a downstroke. Then if you have like an odd number of notes on the string that you're starting with, you start with an upstroke to keep the pattern consistent. It's kind of strange. It's something you don't think about much until you realize that no matter what you try, you can't pick it. And then you eventually try reversing the order of your picking, and then you can play it easily. So it's just kind of neat. Not necessarily important for something like this, though, but it's something to keep in mind. But yeah, that's what I did there. I started with a downstroke. Then the first time I just started with a downstroke again, just going backwards. Then start with a downstroke going up. Start with an upstroke going down. You can start with an upstroke going up. Start with a downstroke going down. Start with an upstroke going up. Start with an upstroke going down. You can start with, you could do hammer-ons. Hammer-ons starting with a downstroke. Like say downstroke every time. And then you do it pull-off starting with a downstroke every time. Let's start with the downstroke with hammer-ons. Now let's start with like an upstroke going up each time. Let's start with an upstroke. Let's start with a downstroke. Start with an upstroke. Start with an upstroke. So that right there, that's 8 different ways that you can play just those 2 notes per string. That's kind of more of what I'm getting at with this, with the permutations, and it is really, it's really cool stuff once you start doing it, and once you see how much of a difference it makes for you. And I mean, that was 8 with only 2 different notes, and there's still a lot more different things you could do. You could essentially, if you reversed everything and you start with this note first, then you could play those. You could get 8 more permutations out of that. So that by itself, just depending on whether you're starting with the 5th fret to the 6th fret or the 6th to the 5th, that's like 16 different ways that you can play those 2 notes. So there you really get a good idea of how much you can do with this. Now, it's just sticking to just kind of the very first position that we were doing. So I'm just going to do, just for the sake of getting through more of these and trying to think of as many as possible in a reasonable amount of time, I'm just going to be sticking to like starting with a downstroke and alternate picking. You got that? Now, do it with these 2. So now we're on frets 6 and 7. Notice how I'm using these 2 fingers now. You can also do, and something that you should do is say, just use the first 2 fingers again. Go all the way up. Even. Which is good exercise in its own right, because given that the frets have a different length, you know, they're wider down here and shorter up here, even just using the same 2 fingers, doing the same exact sort of a pattern does change depending on what fret you're starting on, just because the distance changes. It's you have to kind of like, you know, twist your hand a little bit to do the 1st and 2nd fret, because there's a little bit of distance there. But if you're doing it up here on like 12 and 13, you don't have to twist it all. So that's something to keep in mind. But for now, I'm more concerned with getting through using different finger groupings than what position to do them in. So I was doing 6 and 7 there. 5, 6. And being able to play this cleanly too is really important. Like using metronomes would be great for something like this. This is where it gets tough now. Now we're getting into this finger grouping. This is 7th fret, 8th fret. For me, I'm pretty sure that my weakest finger is my ring finger. My ring finger is definitely stronger and more accurate than my pinky is. So what I'm noticing is when I'm playing that, I'm feeling that it's the knuckle here in my ring finger. As I'm going up, it starts to kind of get weak and it just kind of gets a little flimsy and it just doesn't really want to cooperate. So even though I'm only playing 2 notes on a string, and I'm playing the same 2 notes on each string, you know, that by itself isn't complicated. The fact that you don't have the first finger and the second finger in there playing stuff, kind of like relieving some of the strain, you know, taking over a lot of the duties. Without that in there, it's just these 2, and then I can really feel that the knuckle and the ring finger starting to kind of just lose its stability. And it also works like the muscle here, as I was saying, you feel it burn here, not at that speed and not for that short length of time, but if you do it for a little bit longer, maybe a little bit faster, then you'll definitely feel it too. But I mean, with like weightlifting or anything, the burn is good. You know, that means that you're working that muscle group properly. So that's what we have so far to start with. So. Now we can do this. Let's start adding a little bit to it. Now there's lots of options. Just the most simple one is adding another fret. And again, you can take that and you could play that in all those different ways with picking. And you know, like start what direction of a pick stroke you start with, and whether you're doing hammer-ons or pull-offs. So many different things you can do with it. But again, I'm just sticking to that one to just get through as many of them as I can think of. These 3. Okay. Now that one feels weird by itself too, even though you have the middle finger in there, which you use so often. It's just not that common that you'll be playing something with only these 3 fingers. And in fact, that's a big part of why I like doing stuff like this, is that you force yourself to use different finger groupings than you normally would. And they feel strange at first, but once you get used to them, it just really limbers you up a lot and it allows you to play a lot more with different finger groupings that you wouldn't normally be able to use. And what's something else cool about that is, say you're playing something with these 3 fingers instead, that actually frees up your first finger to maybe be able to do something different, excuse me, along with it that you would normally never be able to do, just because you needed the first finger to even be able to play within the main sequence of notes. So that's something that's really cool when you find that happening. So and I mean, if you had another note in there, you get to the first one I talked about, but we don't really need to do that one again. But just on that topic, you know, you just, if you're using all 4 fingers, you can go up like this, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4. You can go like, you know, 1, 4, 2, 3. You can do like 4, 4, I don't know, 4, 2, 1, 3. Yeah, that's weird. I mean, it really gets you thinking too. Like you see me stopping and like struggling and just kind of almost spacing out a little bit, even though I'm only using 4 notes, all on the same string, all on consecutive frets. But the fact is that I'm thinking of something and playing it in a way that I never normally do. It causes a little bit of a trouble. I'm finding myself thinking 4, 2, 1, 3, just to, and kind of like saying that as I go, just so I don't screw it up. You do like 2, 4, 1, 3. But and so on and so forth. But anyway, so let's go back to the first 2 now. So we're going back to these 2 notes. What else can you do with that? Well, you can do this. Say I'm going to do the first note, the second note, and then maybe the next note on the next string. You can go the second note to the first note of the excuse me of the second note, the first note on the next string, second note on that string. You can do like this. Going back down. You can go not repeating any of the notes, just going up to the next string. Is that it? No, I guess that would actually make it the same as the very first one. So there has to be some kind of a change in there. You could go like this, then go back down. Bottom string, first finger, bottom string, second finger, next string, first finger. Then you go back down, you go bottom string, second, 5th string first, 5th string second. When you do that, you're kind of getting something that reminds you of that kind of pentatonic, sort of like a blues rock sort of pattern. That's like. And that sort of a thing. But do that same thing with these fingers now. We did like yep. Backwards. If we want to do those 2 consecutively. These 2 together now. Okay, now this is where it starts getting uncomfortable. So we had something like that. Or we had like a something like that. We had something like now if you do this one with that stagger pattern, ugh. Hear it fall apart there. That's okay though. That's supposed to happen. You're kind of identifying just a really weak, like a weak patterning, I should say, for you, and it's really I'm really feeling this one here. And my knuckle on my ring finger here is really getting just kind of like wobbly and jelly like, and even my pinky kind of is too, because there's just no stability in the ring finger for this to kind of feed off of. Whew. I think I may be trying to play that even a little too fast. So that, for anyone who hasn't seen yet, this is just these two fingers. You see these here, and from the angle, it could be kind of hard to tell if you haven't been, watching up to this point. But yeah, you see these two fingers here. These two aren't doing anything right now. Every note that I hit is with these two. So, that came out better than I thought it was going to. Try it again. And you can mix and match too. Like what I was doing there is I was playing each grouping up and then back down. Well, say you wanted to do it like this. Say you start up with the first grouping, then you go down with the second grouping, then you can go up with the third. And at that point, you could go. We would have to switch positions. Then you can go up to say like we did 5, 6, and then we did 6, 7, then we did 7, 8. You can go up and kind of reset so that your first finger's on 8 now. Or go back to this now. Let's reverse those. So let's start with these two, but let's go descending here. Now we can go ascending here. And you can go descending with here. Ascending. Descending. Ascending. Descending. That just sounds kind of cool. With like the reverb and the echo. I don't know, it's kind of like the sound of that. But you can hopefully see what it is that we're dealing with here, and some of it can be pretty tricky. You could do something like you can go backwards. You could go like this. The difference there is that we're not sticking with just just like two notes with two frets at a time and then ascending all the way, then descending. We're doing the groupings of two fingers, but we're using each finger grouping basically before we ascend to the next string. And then repeating. Gonna do that again, but I'm gonna take out the rest in there. Actually, it's not so much rest, but the sustain used to emphasize the change in patterns. How would you do that backwards? Yeah, that one there was cool because anyone that had this sort of a grouping in there, like these two fingers, just it burns. You know, it burns and it's awkward and it's hard, but it's good because you know that you're just getting a lot of use out of it. You can do what else can we do? You could do stuff going onto multiple strings. I guess we've kind of already been doing that, but stuff like this. That's just doing basically just a tritone. You have like your bottom string or your starting note, then you go up a sharp 4, which in this case is going from 5 up to your next string and then over a fret. That's what your tritone is. That one's not quite a tritone, but again, we're not worried about playing specific chords or specific intervals. We're worrying about using the exact same shape and the same fingers as you're going up in each position. So that's actually like the interval. That is a perfect fourth. Your augmented fourth in this case would be like that. But we're not worried about that. We're just doing that. We're doing that, 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 that. Or that's doing. We do the first note, then we go up to the next one. Staying on that string, we do that one, then go up. Stay on the string. Go there, there. Or you can just not double up and just go like this. The hesitations you hear in there, what's giving me trouble with this is right before I just started playing the one note per string version, I was doing the one where we had the that to that to that. They wound up having 2 notes per string other than the starting note. I kept on wanting to go back to that and hit the second note per string when I was trying to just do 1 note per string. I kept on wanting to go back and do this, which is how I wanted to do. That's what was giving me trouble there. But still, again, though, using those 2 fingers, it feels good. It feels uncomfortable, but it feels good because you're giving yourself a workout. You can do this. That sounds kind of cool. So you hear me in there. What I started doing is doubling up. The reason why I started doing that is strictly because I like the sound of it. I kind of like it was almost like turning it into some kind of something that has like rhythm to it. Which again, that's not crucial to this sort of exercise, but I just thought that it might sound cool. And that's another cool thing about doing this too, is that you can find creative ways to be creative with having not much to start with to work with. So it not only does it give you the technical exercise, the left hand and the right hand, the fingering, the picking, that kind of stuff, the accuracy, but you can get interesting sounding things out of it if you find as many permutations as you possibly can. Do that backwards, we'd have like that thing with the rhythm I was doing. If you did that backwards, it would be like I think that's what I was doing. No, don't use this finger. Okay, this is going to get tough. had to try that just because I tried it with the other one. So there I was doing one note per string, starting from the bottom string, right? And then we finished that pattern, and then we went up and started and did the same thing starting on the next string. What happens if you just do one note per string? You get this. It's starting to get really tricky here. And then you do it with these ones. What's that like? Well, just like the accuracy needed to do this sort of stuff, it just, I don't know, it seems like it just drains out of you once you start getting up into these harder ones, and it would be debilitating, or demoralizing, I should say. That's probably a better word for it, if not for the fact that, you know, I know that it's good that it's difficult. You know, it's a challenge, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. This is not something where if it's challenging, you just give up and don't do it, you know, because this kind of stuff is what gives you technical ability, you know. And if I don't know, for anyone who just doesn't want to put the effort to do this kind of stuff really because it's too hard, as well, if that's what you want, then fine, but you may regret it. What if so that was doing the kind of like one note per string, so I was also doing it like this. What if we try to connect those and do them back to back? Maybe something like that. This is back to doing one note per string. I really like that one a lot. I mean, that one's tough, but I really like the sound of it too. Oh, wrong one. Yep. What if we did the one where we kind of doubled up and did the three-note pattern, and then went back and started on the next string, then the next string, then the next string? This one. Let's do that, but let's do it in the same way that we were just doing with the two finger groupings back to back. Is that the one we just did? I don't no, that might have been the one that we just did. See, when you do enough permutations, I guess you kind of start forgetting which ones you've done. Which, in that case, you could make a good argument to, that'd be a good reason to write these things down, so that you know not only do you get as many as you can think of, but you don't wind up repeating ones that you already did. You should do stuff like this, often. Repeating it and doing it the same one, multiple times is not a bad thing. But I'm trying to get through as many different ones without repeating, and that's kind of what I'm saying. So what you do all 4 fingers. With stuff like this, if you're doing one note per string and you don't want to repeat the strings, that's fine. But you're going to find that you run out of room to do the stuff pretty quickly. But that, if you're only doing that, say we're only doing 1 note per string, then we only have 2 strings left. There, when I got up to the second string, I just started repeating the pattern just out of consistency. But that means you would need 2 more strings to be able to completely repeat that pattern. You could go, maybe use those 2 if you wanted, or you can go use those 2 again. I would do all of them. I'm hearing music even and stuff like this, kind of like a. What was it? Yeah. Kind of like having it commute a little bit, making just something melodic out of it. And I guess that if you find yourself doing that too, that means that you're being creative and you're probably having fun with it too, which is exactly what you want with anything really. But especially for something like this that could otherwise be just really drab and lifeless. So yeah, that's a big part of it too. Just breathing some life into something just so simplistic. Yeah, a lot of the problem is just remembering what it is that I'm trying to do. Because I've been doing this for a little while now. I did this for maybe 5 or 10 minutes earlier in the day, and then like 5 or 10 minutes before I started recording. So actually, the accuracy is actually not bad right now. I'm missing notes, but that's the whole point of doing stuff like this, is finding something that you miss notes with and getting, just strengthening those weaknesses. What if you did it like this now, complete different? If you start with like the pinky, or you start with a note on the higher fret, then you start getting into stuff like this. Just when you just played it in this sort of a position in general, instead of this one, this is just like a whole bunch of tritones on top of each other, like sharp 4 intervals. But when you do it like this is, that's a bunch of major 3rd intervals. And when you're doing it like this, you start getting actual chords. Like this here, if you're just sticking to the same frets, 8, 7, 6, 5. That right there is a C augmented chord. We have a 1, we have a 3, we have a sharp 5, and we have a 1. So that's an actual chord. If you go up here, then we get, this is like an augmented major 7 chord. We have a 1, a 3, a sharp 5, and a major 7, a 7. If you go up here, That was kind of cool. The first chord I played, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to have that one held down, but I missed it and got something cool out of it. I love it when that happens. And what is that chord? I don't know. Oh, it's just like that's a D minor chord, and it just has a extra D at the base, so D, D. But anyway, if you do it like this and you hit the right note there, then you get a C major 7 chord. There's a 1, there's a 3, there's a 5, there's a major 7. So you see you're getting actual chords here. The amount of permutations you can do with something like that and just like strumming the chords and moving them around is just endless. But I mean, that right there was just one other example of what you can do. That's not as much about picking as it is just playing the chords, but still, it's still good exercise. But you do the same sort of approach though with this kind of stuff. You do like this. You do. You can do. You can do. You could do like this, where you can kind of mix it up. And I lost my place there, but that's basically the gist of it. So I really highly recommend doing stuff like this, especially focusing on stuff that one uses these two fingers a lot. You can even break out of just the pattern, like the strict position playing sort of approach here for this, and you can do stuff like this. You know, the last one I was doing here with the chords, augmented, augmented major 7, major 7. Oop, try it again. What if you did like this? Just using the same two fingers for that. Like, you look at the first one, the augmented chord. Using these two fingers for the first two notes of it, and then using these two fingers again for those two. Yeah, that's pretty frightening. But the more frightening, the better. So you really should try these out. Very good stuff to practice.